Hello everybody and welcome to the first part of the reboot or redo of What If Midoriya Was the Shield Hero. I decided to redo it mainly because of many mistakes I did in the previous version and because I read all the light novels since then, gaining more information. I want to thank Sir Plotslot for helping review the script and Naruzo for making the intro for this video and for my subsequent videos. You can find his details in the description below if you want to contact him for him to make you a video himself. With all that said, let's get right into it. At the start of his second semester UA High, after being released from his suspension, Izuku Midoriya sits in class not really understanding what he's being taught, mainly because of the increase in difficulty and having missed 3 days of class. After the class, their math teacher Ectoplasm, much to the dismay of the class, comments, "Hope you all paid attention to the class. There'll be a quiz tomorrow." He then steps out of the classroom, leaving the class to freak out a bit. "Man, I don't understand anything," Kaminari cries out. Midoriya adds, "Yeah, it's pretty tough. I didn't understand much either." "Huh? If you didn't understand it, how are we supposed to pass the exam?" Kaminari asked, very much worried. Many of the students go to Yorozu to ask her for help. As they do, Midoriya heads out to go study at the library. After a couple hours of studying, he decides to also study for the Hero Fundamentals class. He heads to a shelf trying to grab a book on hero laws. He reaches out to grab it. As the book comes out, so do a couple others, falling down onto the floor. He reaches down to put the books back, but among them he finds a really old-looking book about some cardinal heroes. Midoriya has never heard of these, despite him practically being obsessed over hero culture, and so is intrigued by the prospect of learning about new heroes he's never heard of before. He looks a bit puzzled. He then puts the fallen books about hero laws back on the shelf, excluding the old-looking book. He heads back to the table and thinks it's a book on some forgotten heroes. He starts looking through it, ready to take some notes on his hero analysis number 15. He looks through the analog of the cardinal heroes, looking at their character descriptions, powers, and equipments. Upon reaching the section about the shield hero, he finds that all subsequent pages are blank. Did they not finish writing it? He quietly asks himself. As he does, he's enveloped in a faint light, as he feels like he's falling with his notebook in tow. After a bit of falling, he hits the ground. What just happened? He wonders. He gets back up, grabbing his notebook and taking a look around. He doesn't recognize the place he's in. It's a dark lit chamber with stone walls and a single wooden door. Aside from some columns, there isn't much in there. In front of him are a group of men in robes. One of the men, the one that looks to be in charge, says, "Fantastic! The summoning was a success!" He pauses for a moment and asks, "Oh brave heroes, would you please save our world from great evil?" "What?" say 3 voices along with Izuku's. He looks behind him, seeing 3 other people, each holding a different weapon. One's holding a bow, one a sword, the other a spear. Looking at them, Izuku can't help but make the comparison to the book he was just reading. He then looks down, seeing a shield stuck to his arm. "Who are you? And more importantly, where are we? Oh, and what is this shield?" Izuku asks, wanting to know more. "Please, oh brave heroes, our world is in dire need of saving," the sage comments, wanting help from the heroes. "What do you mean it's in need of saving?" asks the guy with the bow, Itsuki Kawasumi, as he plays with it a bit, tensing the string and releasing it. The head sage answers the hero. "The story behind it is long and complicated, but suffice it to say that you are the 4 cardinal heroes, summoned here using an ancient ritual in order to save our world. It's in a very fragile state and it teeters on the brink of destruction. So we beg you, brave heroes, please lend us your aid." The sage bows down. Midoriya thinks about it for a moment and is about to agree to help, but before he can, "Forget it," the sword hero Runamaki replies. "I also refuse," comments Itsuki. "You can send us back to our homeworlds, right?" the spear hero asks. Do that and then we'll talk. Ren raises his sword, pointing at the head sage as he comments, You brought the four of us here without our consent. Don't you feel the least bit guilty about it? Not to mention, if you throw us out as soon as we restored peace, we've done all that work for nothing, adds Itsuki. How willing are you to accommodate our requests? Asks Motoyasu. Depending on your answer, we may end up your enemies instead of your allies. Midoriya opens his mouth, but before words can come out, the head sage interjects, saying, Good sirs, before I say anything, we'd like you to have an audience with our king. You can negotiate your request with him directly, so please follow us. All right, fine, says the sword hero. I suppose we'll consider their offer, the bow hero adds. Sure, it doesn't matter who we talk to, our demands won't change, the spear hero finishes as they are led out of the room. Not wanting to be left behind, Izuku grabs his notebook and follows. While being led to the king, he starts analyzing the castle, even noticing a little icon in the corner of his vision. After focusing on it a bit, his stat window appears, surprising Midoriya. He lets out an audible gasp, catching the attention of the other heroes. What is it? Ren asks. The icon on the corner of your vision, Midoriya mumbles. Itsuki focuses his attention on it, opening it as Ren asks, a bit annoyed. What about it? It's the stat window. Don't you guys know anything? Motoyasu nods at the comment as Itsuki says, Thanks, I didn't know about it. Ren gives out a disappointed sigh and they keep going. They continue walking until they reach the king's chambers. On the way there, Izuku starts checking out different things in the status window. They reach the king's chambers and are let in, where King All-Clay Melromark the 32nd introduces himself and asks the heroes to do the same. They each introduce themselves, with the situation unfolding like it does normally, with the king not wanting to hear Midoriya's introduction, although he politely manages to introduce himself. After the introductions, the king starts explaining the situation to the heroes, giving them the basic explanation about the waves and their purpose to stop them. As he hears the information, Midoriya starts writing it all down in his notebook, annoying the king, who finds it disrespectful. After the explanation, the heroes start making their demands for compensation. They are accepted by the king with a stipend as a temporary alternative. He asks them to check their statuses and tells them that preparations will be made for a party, since they can't form one themselves. After the meeting with the king is over, the heroes are sent to some chambers to rest up. A while later, in one of the rooms, Motoyasu says, I guess if you're heroes of legend, you get special treatment. The girl who showed us here was cute too. And although it did taste quite unusual, our dinner was quite sumptuous, Itsuki adds. Looking up from his notebook where Midoriya was taking notes of the status window, he asks, I'm not much of a gamer myself, but doesn't this all remind you a lot of a video game? Midoriya responds, That's because it is a video game. It's exactly like Emerald Online. Izuku looks a bit surprised and comments, As I said, I don't play many video games, but I have never heard of that one. Motoyasu asks, Really? It's huge. Even normies know about it. Itsuki shrugs his shoulders, giving a never heard of it look. At the same time, Itsuki says, What are you talking about? This isn't some online game. It's a console game I'm playing called Dimension Wave. Ren interjects, You're both wrong. Everything about this place is identical to a VR MMO called Brave Star Online. A bit annoyed, Motoyasu gets off the bed saying, Let's sort this out. He turns to Izuku and Itsuki and continues, First, you two know what he means by VR MMO, right? Itsuki responds, A sci-fi game I'm familiar with explored the concept. Izuku says, I know what a massive multiplayer online game is, but I don't know what VR means. Itsuki says, It stands for virtual reality. It's a game you can immerse yourself if you were in the actual world, Motoyasu adds. Now that that's out of the way, Motoyasu continues, let's compare some general knowledge. They then start asking each other questions, each giving different answers. When it's Midoriya's turn, he asks, Who's the number one hero? The question is met with confused looks. What do you mean hero? Motoyasu asks. Firemen? Policemen? No, I mean actual heroes like in those old comic books, with quirks and all, Midoriya responds. What's a quirk? Ren asks, confused. Is it like my ability? Itsuki asks. Well, about 80% of people have them. Each is special to the individual. Basically like superpowers in those old comic books. I don't know what your ability is though, Midoriya answers. Pretty similar to what I know then, except the amount of people is way smaller. I myself have an ability, or well, as you would call a quirk. It's called accuracy. It allows me to not miss. Do you have one, and if so, what is it? Itsuki asks. Midoriya looks at Itsuki with a twinkle in his eye. My quirk is called superpower, Midoriya starts. Pretty simple name, Ren interrupts. Well, yeah, Midoriya continues. It allows me to enhance my abilities. So it's enhanced strength, Itsuki asks. The conversation goes on for a bit longer, and just like that, they conclude that they come from different worlds. After a bit more chatter about the situation, Izuku asks, So you've all played video games that are like this world, right? You got any advice? Motoyasu says, First things first. You're the shield hero, correct? You're going to have it pretty tough for yourself. Midoriya asks, What do you mean? Why? Ren says, Sorry, but shielders suck, man. Why? Midoriya asks while looking at his shield, a bit puzzled. They specialize in defense, meaning they don't have many attack capabilities, Itsuki says. They're decent in the early game, but as the other classes improve, the shielders tend to be left behind, Ren adds. But specializing in defense doesn't mean the shield is bad. It means you have different parameters you operate under. Even if I can't attack, I can still protect everyone. That's a hero's job, right? Midoriya retorts. I guess, but you can't do anything by yourself, Motoyasu comments. Good thing you're going to get some party members tomorrow, right? Midoriya responds. I guess you're right, Motoyasu comments, not totally convinced. Plus, if worse comes to worse, you can always rely on your quirk, Itsuki adds. Got any more advice for me? Places I should go to get stronger, stuff like that? Midoriya asks. To start out with, leveling outside the castle town should be fine, but as you level up, it becomes harder to reach the next one. Heading away from the castle town and other populated areas, the monsters will get stronger, but they also award more XP, Ren comments. You can also head to dungeons and places like that in order to farm XP more easily, Itsuki adds. Midoriya then yawns and heads to his own room to sleep. Before he falls asleep, though, he spends a bit of time looking through the help menus and the different areas of the shield, learning a lot of information. The next day after waking up, the heroes are summoned into the king's chambers to assemble their parties. In this situation, it's the party members that get to choose which hero they wish to follow. So, because of the region's disdain for the shield hero, he ends up with 0 party members. A bit hurt with the outcome, Midoriya is still unwavering and ready to head out to become stronger, even if he is alone. He could make friends along the way, he thought. However, before setting out, a girl in Motoyasu's party asks if she could switch parties to join Midoriya. There are no complaints, so she joins Midoriya. Afterwards, the heroes are given their funds and set out on their adventures. After saying goodbye to the other heroes, Midoriya turns to Mai and says, So what should we do now? With a smile on her face, she says, I guess I should introduce myself. My adventure name is Mind Sophia. It's an honor to meet you and to fight by your side. I'm Izuku Midoriya. Thanks for choosing to help me, Izuku says. Why, of course. It's my honor, Sir Hero. Where should we head to first? Asked Mine again, smiling at Izuku. I'm not totally sure. We should probably go to a weapon shop or something like that. We kind of need equipment, says Midoriya, analyzing the situation. I'll take you to the best one in town. They should have everything you need there, she says. As she says it, Mine starts walking, leading the way with Izuku following close behind. As they walk through the town, Izuku looks in amazement at all the magic being used. He marvels at this new world. "We're here," says Mine as they reach the weapon shop. Walking in, Midoriya looks in awe at the place. The owner steps up to the counter and says, "Welcome, sir. First time in a weapon shop, I'd venture." Midoriya nods. "It's written all over your face. You sure know how to pick them," Erhard continues. "So what can I do for you today, Mr.?" "Oh, I'm Izuku Midoriya, the shield hero. And actually I didn't pick it, she did," Midoriya says while looking over at Mine, who's hiding a bit behind him. "You do look familiar, miss. Anyway, what can I do for you today, Sir Hero?" asks the weaponsmith. "We're here to get some equipment for Sir Hero. Our budget is around 250 silvers, says Mine. Erhard goes to grab some weapons in the back to prepare a display. While he does, Midoriya walks to a bunch of shields and grabs one. As he does, the weapon copy system activates. He then sets it down and grabs another one. Midoriya then starts mumbling to himself. "The weapon copy system seems to work, but I'm not high enough level to use any of these. The good news is I'll be able to unlock them as I get stronger without having to do so much." Mine walks up to him and asks, "What are you doing, Sir Hero?" Midoriya turns to her and says, "Just looking at these shields over here, seeing if it'd be interested in any." "I see," says Mine. "Come over here, kid. Have some weapons ready for you to see." Midoriya walks over to Erhard, and so Erhard continues. "I prepared a couple weapons for you to pick from. Left to right, that's iron, magic steel, and silver iron, in ascending order of price. All quality swords guaranteed." A bit amazed at how they look, Midoriya tries to grab the magic iron sword, but when he does, an electric discharge is released, making Midoriya drop the sword. "What the?" he exclaims, surprised at what just happened. He tries grabbing another one, but again, it just jumps out of his hands, with an electrical discharge being released. The sword ends up sticking to the roof. "What's going on?" Izuku asks, not understanding the cause of the events. Both of the others with him don't know either. Then a help scream appears in Midoriya's field of vision, saying, "A hero could not hold, with intent to fight, any weapon other than their assigned legendary weapon." "Just great," Midoriya says, along with a sigh of defeat. "What's the matter, Sir Hero?" asks Mine, appearing concerned. "Apparently I can't use other weapons other than the shield in order to fight," Midoriya responds. Curious, Erhard tries using his appraisal skills on the shield. He probes a bit, asking some questions, but doesn't learn much. After analyzing it, Erhard says, "Thanks for showing me something interesting. Want to buy some armor?" Midoriya thinks for a moment and responds, "It's one of the few things I can actually use, so it might be a good idea. Got any more shields I can take a look at? Other than the ones on display, I mean." "Sure," Erhard responds, going into the back. Midoriya has a look at the shields in the shop, using the weapon copy system to at least save them into a shield. Erhard asks, "Want to buy any?" A bit flustered, Midoriya says, No thanks. It seems my shield is stronger than the ones you have here." Erhard asks, "Seriously? Some of these shields are pretty good and come from some pretty far off places. That small thing is more powerful?" "Well, it is of legend," Midoriya answers. After that exchange, he tries on a couple of different armors, settling on a chain armor that allows for plenty of mobility and defense. They pay for the armor, and a thought crosses Izuku's mind. Can you do any custom orders?" he asks. Erhard thinks for a moment and responds, "As long as you bring me the materials, I can make just about anything you need, kid." "Great, see you soon then," Izuku says as he and Mine leave the shop. They then head to the fields right outside the castle to level up a bit. They walk to a tree and set their stuff down. "How should we proceed?" asks Midoriya. "These fields are filled with a lot of low-level monsters such as orange balloons. How about you show me what the shield here is all about?" Mine says, smiling at Midoriya. "Sure," Midoriya says. He spots some balloons and runs after them. Once they engage him, he tries to activate One for All Full Cow, but the moment he does, he feels a jolt of electricity throughout his entire body and flies back, hitting the ground. Mine walks to his side and asks, "Are you okay, Sir Hero?" Midoriya gets up and says, "I'm fine." "What happened?" asks Mine. "I'm not sure," answers Midoriya. He looks at his hand and thinks, "It activated for a moment. I still have One for All inside, so why didn't it work?" As this thought enters his mind, a glitched out version of the warning appears before him. A hero cannot hold with intent to any weapon other than their assigned legendary weapon. "So it counts as a weapon," Midoriya mumbles. "What's that?" Mine asks curiously. "Nothing," answers Midoriya. "I'm going to try again," he continues. He jumps back at the balloons, evading some attacks and hitting them back. He pops a couple after hitting them over and over again. He even discovers that they can't hurt him, but he only gets 1 XP by killing them because of the ineffective use of the shield. So he doesn't get anywhere. After a while, he walks towards Mine a bit tired. "Your turn," he says as he sits down to rest. Looking at his shield, a couple of green sparks seem to come out of it. But Midoriya just ignores it. "I'll do my best," Mine says, while smiling at him, and pulls her sword from her scabbard and goes to kill some orange balloons. Some time passes, and after she's done, they feed a bunch of the materials to the shield. The small orange balloon shield is unlocked, but not much more. Midoriya says, "Seems they don't drop anything other than the actual parts. Guess that's because it's a balloon and didn't leave a body behind." Mine asks, "What are you talking about, Sir Hero?" "Oh, ignore me, I tend to ramble on. I was just mentioning that the drop function of the shield doesn't really work with the balloons," Midoriya responds. "What's a drop function?" Mine asks. To which Midoriya answers, "It's a skill that the shield and the other weapons have. I can apparently feed it dead monsters and it will turn them into items and such." Night starts to settle in, and the two head back to the castle town. On the way to the inn, they pass by the weapon shop. While Mine looks around, selecting some pieces of equipment, Midoriya talks to Erhard, asking him a bunch of questions and taking notes. After a while, Midoriya runs out of questions, so he turns to Mine and asks, "Why are we here again?" "To get some new gear for me, of course," Mine responds. She comes out of the changing room wearing a brand new armor and with a new sword in her scabbard. "How do I look?" she asks, wanting to hear him compliment her. Midoriya, paying more attention to his status window, wanting to find out more secrets of the shield, answers, "You look pretty good." He turns to Erhard and asks, "How much will this cost?" "With a hero's discount, let's go with 480 silvers, Erhard answers. Midoriya thinks, with the 120 that we gave him this morning, that'll only leave us with 200 of what the king gave us. He turns to Mine and asks, "Mind buying a bit less? We still need to account for other expenses." "Think about it, Sir Hero. With better equipment, I'll be able to kill more monsters tomorrow," Mine responds. "Keep the sword then, and get another armor. I agree that it's an asset, but we still should keep some money for meals and time at inns and to pay passage through places, right?" Erhard nods, and Mine, with a bit of a mad look, goes to put the armor back. "That'll be 180 silvers for the sword, kid," Erhard says. Midoriya pays the man. Then he reaches into his shield, grabbing a piece of the orange balloon. "Is there any way we can sell these?" he asks. Erhard looks at the piece of balloon for a moment and answers, "There are some shops around town where you can sell monster drops, but here it's only armor and weapons, I'm afraid." "Thanks anyway," says Midoriya as he leaves the shop. They head to a nearby inn where they have dinner together. There, Mine offers him some wine, but Midoriya says, "No thanks, I'm actually underage." Mine looks at him confused. So Midoriya clarifies, explaining that he's not a legal adult in his world, and thus not allowed to drink alcohol. Mine says, "The rules of your world don't apply here, though. You're free to drink as much as you'd like." Midoriya says, "I guess you're right, but I still don't really care for this stuff. Have to stay fit for tomorrow. He then heads to his room. On the way, though, he bumps into Itsuki, exchanging a couple lines between themselves, where Midoriya again comes out as useless since he didn't gain a single level, but Itsuki sympathizes with him. When he arrives in his room, Midoriya exercises for a bit while contemplating on his next move. He starts thinking about all the events of the day and decides to use his hero analysis notebook as a sort of diary. After finishing the notes for the day, he sets everything down, takes off the armor, and goes to sleep. While sleeping, he has some pretty strange dreams of heroes such as All Might and others he doesn't recognize, fighting a sort of spirits, an orb of light holding a shield, with him watching from the sidelines. In the end, the heroes manage to win the battle though. While he's sleeping, a small group breaks into his room, grabbing his armor, school uniform, and money. One of the robbers asks, "What about this notebook?" Another robber looks at him and says, "What even is this? It's just some dumb pictures, not even proper writing. Leave it." The next day, Midoriya wakes up early in the morning, full of motivation. He goes to grab his armor, only to realize that it's gone. He starts looking around his room, only to realize that all his belongings, excluding his shield and notebook, have been stolen. He thinks for a moment and then goes to the innkeeper downstairs to report the robbery. The innkeeper is about to say he'll inform the guards just as some castle guards come in. Midoriya says, "Perfect timing. I was just reporting a robbery." The head knight stares at Midoriya in silence for a moment and then says, "Shield hero, the king has issued a summons for you, boy. You're to come with us." "What is this about?" Izuku asks. "You're to come with us, as ordered by King Aldclaymark, shield hero," the knight repeats. "I heard you. Can't you at least tell me what this is about?" As he asks, he's being dragged to the carriage. "Hey, what are you doing?" he asks, confused as to what is happening. "We're to take you to the castle at once, shield hero. Please, do not resist," the knight says. Thus, Midoriya is taken to the castle. Upon reaching the king's chambers, he is thrown on the ground, his notebook being thrown beside him. He looks up and spots Mine. He mumbles, "I didn't even think about her." "Are you alright, Mine? Did they hurt you?" he asks, but Mine just hides behind Motoyasu, some tears in her eyes. "What's wrong? What happened?" Midoriya asks, confused at the situation. He turns to the king, bows, and says, "Your Majesty, it appears that my belongings have been stolen while..." Before he can finish his sentence, the king interrupts him, saying, "Silence, you filth!" leaving Midoriya stunned. The king then says, "Mine, I'm sorry to ask, my dear, but would you mind repeating your testimony for us again?" While whimpering, Mine says, It happened last night. The shield hero forced his way into my room. He grabbed me and pinned me down. He said something like, 'The night's still young,' and then the next thing I knew, he was tearing my clothes off. Somehow, I managed to escape. I ran down the hall for help and found Sir Motoyasu, who happened to be staying at the same inn." Midoriya looks stunned hearing these words, not knowing what's happening. Motoyasu then says, "If she hadn't asked me to wait until dawn and wait for the knights, I would have gladly cut you down myself." Midoriya looks at Motoyasu, noticing he's wearing his armor. Midoriya thinks for a moment and asks, "May I speak freely?" The king replies, "I will not allow such filth to utter a single word." Before he can finish his sentence, Ren says, "I think we should at least hear him out. Get his side of the story?" The king quiets down for a moment, regains his composure, and says, "Very well. The floor is yours, shield." Midoriya stands up and continues. "Firstly, I would like to say that I am being falsely accused of a crime I did not commit. Yesterday, I had dinner with Mine. She offered me some wine, but I declined since, by my world's rules, I am still underage and not allowed to drink. Afterwards, I went to my room, running into Itsuki on the way. He saw me go to my room. He even teased me on how weak I was. I did not leave the room afterwards. I even wrote about it all in my book." At this point, the king tries to retort his defense, but Midoriya just continues. "Secondly, That armor that Midoriya is wearing belongs to me, and I would like to request it being returned, please. Midoriya outraged retorts, "What are you talking about? This armor was gifted to me by mine. She gave it to me as a gift at the pub yesterday." Midoriya says, "I talked to the weapon shop owner yesterday. I was pretty curious as I usually am, so I asked how they kept track of all the weapons. He told me that they categorize them. They keep detailed records. If she did in fact gift you the armor, where did she get it?" Mine says, "Oh, I'm the princess, so everything in the castle belongs to me. I grabbed it out of an old storeroom." "There you have it," says the king, wanting to move on. But before he can, Itsuki says, "We should probably still check the records, just to make sure." The king asks for the records to be taken to him, and he says, "Indeed, they come from the castle storeroom. Now can we move on? He did commit a great sin." Ren says, "Hold it. I agree that we still need to discuss that, but it does seem like having the father of the one who supposedly stole the armor read the records is a bit unfair. You could be setting him up." "Nonsense! What reason could I have for such a thing?" the king comments. "Regardless, we will table this discussion until later. For now, Mr. Midoriya, we must decide on your punishment. If you weren't a hero, then death would be your penalty. However, we may still need your aid to defend against the waves." "I'm telling you I'm innocent! I committed no crime that I know of, at least. If I did, there'd be evidence," Midoriya says. A knight comes in saying, "Sir, while examining his quarters, we found this." He pulls out a single piece of woman's undergarment. "Huh? What? That wasn't my room when I was there. My room was completely empty," Midoriya says. "The evidence could have been planted," Ren admits. "What are you talking about? He's guilty!" Midoriya screams, outraged. "You have to admit that all this seems pretty convenient. Like a conspiracy, almost," Itsuki says. "But he did it! I know he did! Otherwise, why would mine be crying like this?" Midoriya says. "Rumors about your heinous acts are already being spread. That'll be your punishment," the king says. "But I didn't do it," Midoriya reaffirms. He then continues, "If you're so adamant that I did, just send me home and summon a new shield hero." "I would love nothing more, but the legends say that once all heroes have been summoned, no new heroes can be summoned until the waves have been defeated," the king says, giving a disappointed sigh. "Now cast him out of my sight," the king orders, after a moment of silence. The knights go to grab Midoriya, but before they can, Ren says, "Hold it! Don't think we'd forget. We still have to discuss about the armor and about his equipment being stolen," Itsuki adds. The discussion goes on a bit longer. Not wanting to upset the other three heroes too much, the king ends up pitying Midoriya, giving him some weak armor from the armory instead of the one Moriyasu is wearing. Midoriya thanks Itsuki and Ren for their help and is then thrown out of the castle town to fend for himself. And that's the end of the first part. I do hope you all enjoyed. If you did, be sure to hit that like and subscribe buttons. I have to thank again Sir Plotsalot for helping review the script, and Naruzo for the intro, which you saw in this video. I honestly really like how it turned out. And I'm going to tell you that more is coming, and just be patient. Until next time, everyone, have an absolutely fantastic day. Bye!